All right, we continue on. So today we're going to talk about some of the important things when it comes to framing. So we talked last time about the floor and framing it and what you need to know and what you need to do for it. So now we're going to talk about the framing. Most homes today are framed with 2x6 for exterior walls. At least here in Ontario they do. So anyways, and sometimes you'll get where they'll frame it double 2x4 to get more insulation, but most guys now are framing 2x6 and then they put a continuous insulation board on the outside. So it bridges all of your joints between your studs and stuff like that are doubled up. So we'll start with some of the practices that happen here. So right here, you've got your header up top there. You can see that. And then they frame down underneath it to bring down, because that window isn't that tall. Now, the next thing is they've used a double king stud or cripple stud, or people call them slip studs. This depends on where you are, what they call them. So anyways, it's a double cutoff stud. It's a support stud is what it does. It supports that header up there and transfers the weight right down to your foundation. So now, depends. Not all places call for double slip studs or kings. Actually, this is your king stud. That's your one that goes up beside. Some places also call for a double king stud. But here now, Ontario Building Code has made over 2,000 changes in 2025. So anyways, yeah, so you can see double there. And then the other thing is you see how right up there, so those slip studs go right up underneath the header. So it used to be that some guys would frame a horizontal piece underneath the header and then put the slip studs underneath that. Well, now you cannot do that. It has to go right up to the header. So anyways, and then corners. We're going to talk about corners. So here in the corner, we have drywall backup. So we have one stud here, and then what they do is they put a stud flat up against it. It's in line here with this wall, and it's perpendicular there. So now when they nail their drywall on here, it's got something to nail to. And they got a stud back inside there. So you don't want to end up with a blind corner. You don't want to have a stud going this way, because then you have a blind uninsulated corner. You can do that and then spray foam it before you put your other stud in. But this is a quicker, easier way to do it. So, and I see here they've used some timber screws to tighten that right up there. Not necessary, but it's a better practice. So anyways, and about the garage door, they've got a triple header there. That's what it will call for, 2x3, 2x10s. That's what the code calls for on that. You can use other material. They're using spruce lumber here, but you can use LVLs or glue lamps or whatever your designer calls for. Now see here, what they've done is on the bottom, they've actually used a pressure treated plate, and then they used a regular spruce lumber on top of that. That makes that, because you cannot have regular spruce lumber on top of concrete, it will eventually rot. They've also too, if you can see right in there, there's a foam gasket in there that also protects the wood from the concrete, from sucking moisture out of the wood. So anyways, there you go. And then see the way they've done this. So they framed a 16-foot wall to there, and then they framed the rest there. But what they did is they doubled up the two studs. So when they stand up the wall, then they can nail these two together. Some guys won't. They'll just put one stud in the middle, and then they nail half. They'll nail half of this plate on the stud and half of this plate on the stud, which isn't really stronger. Yes, some of these things cost a little bit more money, but it's a better build. So, and as you can see, they've used OSB board, which is particle board. You can use particle board or plywood. Just depends on your budget. The OSB board's a little bit cheaper than plywood, but that's entirely up to your budget. But both work just fine. So anyways, let's see what else we got here. So, the other thing is too, when you're framing up walls and stuff like that, make sure that you got lots of angle bracing. And your angle bracing should be at the top of the wall, and it should run down to a secured anchored spot like this here, which is the floor. And they've also got one right down into the plate. And this plate is also will have anchor bolts drawn down into the concrete there. Then they've used timber screws, which are super strong. You'll never get that off. You'd have to have a terrible tornado in order to do that. So anyways, here we go. Go up here. So we already talked about the flooring. And again, they've got all their blocks too. Make sure that when you put your blocks on the floor there, make sure that these are not just nailed into the plywood. Make sure that they're screwed or nailed into the floor joist, because if you don't and you get a high wind, that whole wall could just tip over, just could crunch. I've seen it happen time and time again. So I see they've started all their trusses. Make sure that you brace your trusses according to the engineer's manufacturing specifications. Here, and this is another great idea. See how that angle brace, it goes right up to the outside truss. So that's right, I don't know if you can see it or not, right up out there. You can kind of see it. So it's braced right to the outside wall. So that's how one way to get that nice and straight, nice and level. And then they've actually braced it right down to the floor, which is great, because now that's good and strong. And if they get high winds, it's not going anywhere. So the other thing, let's see what we got here. When you're putting your trusses up, make sure you are ready when the crane comes. Some guys will hand bomb them up, but it's so much faster to do it with a crane. The other thing is too, some guys will frame the entire roof on the ground, but in this situation, there's just not enough room. So there again, we're looking at the headers here. So that is LVL. So that is actually, it's a 3-ply 12-inch. And that just makes it, that's super strong because it's a bigger opening. And this will be, you can see they've already got some deck forming in there already. So that's going to be a big deck in there. So anyways, what else have we got here? The other thing is too, is some guys, when they frame their windows, what they'll do is they'll run this stud on top of, so they'll frame this little wall and they'll run it right out to the king stud. Not really a good idea, because here, what if you ever wanted to change the size of that window? Now it's too bad, you can't do it. This way, if you run your slip studs right down, or cripple, whatever you want to call them, right down to your plate, and then this little wall here, knee wall, is framed in between your slips. That way, you can take it as low as you want. The other thing in this case, they have ran the header right up tight to the top plate. So, and you always double top plate. It's so much stronger, and well, it's code too. So, and anyways, that makes it, now you don't have to insulate above it, and there's, so that's good. What else have we got? Make sure again, no blind corners. Make sure that you got your drywall back up in here. What else have we got? So we're looking at the heel on the trusses here. So always make sure your heel is high enough to accommodate for the proper amount of insulation and ventilation. Now this is likely going to be a steel roof. They haven't decided yet whether it's going to be asphalt or whether it's going to be steel. Steel you're never replacing ever again. But make sure, yes, that heel, that's the end of the truss where it sits to the outside of the wall. Right, so it'll be flush to the outside. You want to make sure that heel's high enough that you can get insulation. The other thing is too, is you can run your plywood right up and nail into the back of those trusses, so that gives that stability, so it's not going to tip over. So anyways, I'm gonna show you on the outside too another thing. Okay, here's something's really important. Some guys think it's a waste of time and money. It's not. It's absolute structural integrity of the building. So see how they've got the OSB board or plywood, whatever you're going to use, actually runs right down, and it ties into the bottom plate on the floor, on the framing of the floor, because this is super sturdy, super strong. And if you the more members you tie together, the stronger your house. I've had some guys tell me, oh no, just bring the plywood to here and then you can just fill in the bottom. well, you've lost a tremendous amount of lateral strength on that building, and also to any uplift. So if you're in a hurricane or tornado or something like that, this tying this all together makes it so much stronger. So, and actually, well, we're speaking about hurricanes and tornadoes because in this area, hurricanes aren't common, but tornadoes are. Not, we get, like F1s and 2s, but none of these 4s and 5s or whatever. So on your trusses, they will be doing this later. On the end of that truss, or right where that truss meets the top plate, there's a thing called hurricane clips. I'll show you a picture of it. It ties that truss to the wall, which then is all tied together with your exterior sheathing. That makes that much stronger. It should be building code everywhere. There's been some cases where homes would have stayed together better had they had those on. So anyways, each one of those trusses should have a hurricane clip. That'll make it that much stronger. So anyways, so there you go. There's that. What else have we got? This here, where they've got the T 2x6 framing here. This of course is just temporary. So this is so you get two nice straight 2x6, nail them together, and that gives you a good brace, a good starting point for your trusses, or when you're putting those up. So, and they're just temporary, they'll come off after. So anyways, and as you can see at the bottom here, they have got, there's a ledge right there. So that's about an inch, just a little over an inch. So by the time they put their insulation board on that, your continuous insulation board that covers over the entire thing, it bridges all your studs, and that makes a much better insulation. That'll bring that right out flush, so that when you put your siding and all that on, the water running down will run down past your concrete.